Welcome back to the live desk on KCTV5 Plus. I'm investigative reporter Samantha Boring, joined by Dr. Abby Vector from William Drew College. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, so Abby has quite the experience in the political realm, the politics, and tonight we are talking about a recall election. But before I want to jump into some questions with you, let's take a look at the latest numbers for this election. We're already starting to see quite a bit of numbers come in from both Jackson County and Kansas City. As for Kansas City, we know that voters, they were voting within their wards. We're seeing about a 10.62% turnout for them. And then we're also seeing about a little over 23,000 ballots cast. If we want to take a look at those numbers here in just a second, though, we're seeing about 80% of voters saying yes, that Jackson County Executive Frank White Jr. should no longer hold his seat as county executive. And Abby, I know you've been here seeing these come in. We're kind of expecting more results to come in the next 10 to 15 minutes. But I want to talk to you first about the rarity of this election. You know, we haven't seen a recall election here in Jackson County. Can you talk to me a little bit about how often things like this are happening?
Yeah, recall elections are relatively rare. Of course, they're rare here in Jackson County. If the recall is successful, it will mark the first time we've removed a county executive this way. But they're also rare nationally as well. This isn't something that happens often, but it's worth noting that I think that rarity actually gives voters a lot of faith in the process. We have a lot of good public opinion data that shows that citizens and representative democracies see these recall elections as really powerful tools and powerful levers to make sure that that power does stay with the people. So I think the rarity of the event actually adds to its power and to how citizens feel about it.
And I know something we've seen a lot with this recall election is it's taken like 2 years for people to get more than 43,000 signatures on the petitions, getting this to this actual point. It really wasn't until this June when we saw this actually start to get movement and then get to the point of being on the ballot today. You know, we also saw court challenges on this, which was something that we just expected in this. On Friday, we saw that the county executive filed a motion with the Court of Appeals to halt this election, and the Court of Appeals denied that yesterday. From your perspective, have you seen any efforts similar to this with court challenges when it comes to recall elections?
Yeah, it's a common tool. The target of the recall is always going to try and challenge the legitimacy of a recall election. It's a pretty common response to something like this. Clearly, that appeal was denied for Frank White. We know that he was arguing and his team was arguing that this election that happened today, right, was on an unlawful date. And that was the argument he was making. But at this point, we had votes that were already in. It was sort of a last-ditch effort. And we know that judges across the country, but in this case as well, are really hesitant to change an election when people are already participating in it and planning for it. There's a really high bar that someone has to clear in order for those votes that had already been cast to be thrown out. So I'm not surprised that the appeal was denied, and that is something that we see nationally as well in these types of situations.
And I know we could see Frank White have gone to the Supreme Court in Missouri to try and even get that appeal changed that was denied. Do you think that there could be any court challenges? Obviously, we're seeing the numbers now. There's a pretty big difference. We don't have the full results yet.
Yeah.
Looks like we're at least reporting 40%. If he were to fully be recalled, just from what we're seeing now, could there be more court challenges?
Yeah, for sure. He has the right to challenge the election results in court. There are only a few things that lead to a lawful challenge, right? He would have to show and have evidence of some sort of either statutory noncompliance or procedural error or voting rights violation. And claims like that require quite a bit of evidence. There's a very high evidentiary bar for claims like that when throwing out election results. Judges are very hesitant to throw out election results, especially in a representative democracy like ours. And we know that there's actually a relatively tight turnaround for his team to file those types of challenges to the election results as well. So we could certainly see those challenges take place. We just know historically, and just given the facts of the case today too, that it would be unlikely to be a successful challenge.
Okay. What kind of tight turnaround are you talking about when it comes to that?
Yeah, Missouri state law requires those to be filed within 30 days of the final results being announced.
Okay.
Yes.
And I know we could see those final results within the week or so that'll be
Yes,
interesting.
yes, and we know our election boards too. They have until October 14 to certify those results, but they hope to and have announced that they hope to do that sooner.
Oh, wow. So, besides the legal challenges and all of that, let's talk about what happens next from here. I know, like I said, we have plenty of votes that are in for yes, he should be recalled, but we don't have those official results. So, what could happen whether him staying in this position or if he were to be recalled?
Yeah, if the recall fails, Frank White will stay in his position until January of 2027. He has already publicly stated that he will not be running for re-election in the November 2026 election, and so if the recall fails, he will be in his position until January of 2027. If it succeeds, we will see the legislature, the chairman of the legislature, appoint a temporary person to this position, a 30-day term only. And then after that person, or within those 30 days, I should say, the county legislature is going to appoint someone to carry out and to fulfill the rest of Frank White's term. So this person that the legislature appoints will serve until January of 2026. Of course, it'll be the voters who elect the next person to take on a full term, and they will do that in November of 2026.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be definitely a lot happening in the next few months if that recall actually is successful. Something I also wanted to ask you about is we've heard from Frank White, who says that this is bad for the county. It's a waste of taxpayer dollars. And some people are concerned that what if this is bad for the county? What if things don't go well after this? From a political perspective, what exactly do you say to that when people think like, oh, this might not actually be good for Jackson County?
Sure. I mean, the immediate answer, right, is time will tell. It's hard to have that sort of prediction, and we don't know what will happen. I think one of the criticisms of how this recall has been handled is we don't know who will end up replacing Frank White. That's something that Frank White himself has said is unfair and non-transparent, and it's something that we don't know. So we can't make predictions about what this is going to look like because we don't know who will take his place if the recall is successful. But bringing it back to what I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation too, we are in a representative democracy, and citizens feel empowered when they have these tools of democracy to pull, these levers that they can pull to kind of have elections like this that reflect the will of the people. So it's important that those are fair and transparent, and they are something that citizens think highly of.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, the people that I've talked with that are a part of this recall effort, they have been so passionate, kind of like what you said, that tool of having the fact that they can collect all these signatures and they can get people supporting this recall effort. They have put in a lot of work for this, and people have really wanted to see this happen. Of course, we have seen Frank White be against this. Rightfully so. That's his position. He's been working on this job for 9 years now. But really, overall, what would you say is the biggest lesson people could learn from this out of just everything you've kind of seen?
Yes, this is going to be my professory answer, but I always just want people to participate, right? And you have the opportunity, if this recall is successful, to choose your next county executive. That'll happen November of 2026. We see in these non-presidential election years turnout be lower in these midterm elections, and so I would just encourage everyone to stay informed and to stay engaged and to get out and vote, and this is within your power as citizens of Jackson County.
Definitely. Well, let's take a look at those people that made their voices heard and they voted. Let's check on those numbers here if we can do that. We've got about 39,000, a little over 39,000 people, 82% voting yes, that Frank White should be recalled from his position as county executive here in Jackson County. No, about 17% of voters so far. But as we can see, we're only reporting about 40% of results, so we don't have those full results yet. And of course, results don't get certified until a few days or a week or so after, so these are going to be unofficial results for tonight. But definitely interesting seeing this all play out after a few months of this happening. I mean, I think a lot of people have just been waiting for this day.
Absolutely.
Well, Dr. Bechter, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
We're going to be hopping on here soon once we get some more results in, but thanks so much for joining us on the KC5 Plus stream.
Thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, welcome back to some more Jackson County recall election coverage. I'm Katie Bird here with investigative reporter Samantha Boring. She's been doing a great job of keeping all the streaming viewers updated on this really landmark election here in Kansas City. So Samantha, I know we have Betsy here and she's actually joined by another guest.
Yes, so we're actually going to be hearing from Fawn Collins, who Betsy is there. She's currently at a Vote Yes watch party that's over in Independence. Fawn Collins was one of the 4 residents who was on the lawsuit to push for this recall election to actually be on the ballot. So we want to go out to Betsy. Betsy, how's everything going?
Hey there, good. By the way, I don't just have Fawn Collins. I've also got Stephanie Cohen. You probably know her from the lawsuit as well. Take a look at the room. They're standing by for us, but we've still got quite a few people, and we're seeing people mill in and out. Sean Smith is here, who you know from the Jackson County Legislature. He's really been pushing this from the legislature front. Manny Abarca, legislator, we saw him come in just a few minutes ago. We've got the guy who paid for the big billboard on the highway to promote this, and we have these 2 ladies, Fawn and Stephanie, who are responsible for the court case that forced that election to happen today instead of in November. So let me start with you, Fawn. You've really been focused on this for a long time.
Yes, ma'am. From the beginning. I mean, I have no words. I'm just so excited because we're going to get him out of there. You know, he has really destroyed our Jackson County. There's a lot of people lost homes and still are losing homes unnecessarily because their taxes were over-assessed. You know, and then to see that, and then him getting less than a 7% on his assessment is really beyond me. When it's not right what he did. It's illegal, and to me it's wrong.
And what motivated you? Did this impact you? Are you still in the home you were in when you first got started on this?
I'm still in the home, but I have a lot of friends and family members that were really affected by the assessment. They really had really high. I have a friend that hers was almost 1,000%. My heart went out to her. She lives in the inner city. House built in, I believe it was either the early 1900s. And to see that, and it's a 2-bedroom home, it has a lot of work needs to be done on it, and over about 1,000% increase. That's ungodly.
Stephanie, I saw you just gasp when you heard that. When did you get started in all of this, and what was it that motivated you?
Well, I started shortly after it originated on August 31st of 23 in Oak Grove when they had the fair there, which we could not participate in, but we did canvas. And what got me motivated was, well, first of all, I thought it had to be an accident that, or I had a mistake on my assessment, but then I got my second assessment for my rental property, and I thought, this is insane. Other people have to have said something about this, and I found a group on Facebook about Jackson County high assessments, and I joined that, and I got involved. My assessments, I ended up paying $22,000 in capital gains to sell my rental property. I did do very well on my assessment, my BOE assessment, to reset my value on my home, but I kept going because I saw all these other people that were much less fortunate than I was, especially like Concept, inner city. They got hit the hardest. The people who voted for Fred are a lot of the ones who got hit hard.
I see a lot of the publicity about the recall effort. When you look at who's got signs in their yards, it seems to be very Eastern Jackson County folks.
Hey Betsy.
Eastern Jackson County?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Eastern Jackson County here.
Hey Betsy, can you hear me?
1 second, someone is speaking in my ear.
Hello. Hey, we're having a little bit of an audio issue there. We really can't hear you. We're getting a lot of gnat sounds. So could we come back to you in just a second? Is there any way you guys could check on that? Thanks. We'll come right back here. Thank you. We'll come right back in just a second. Perfect. All right. Well, while Betsy Webster is on standby, Sammy, what do you say we go ahead and take a look at those votes
that's
again?
just the life of live TV. That's just how it is sometimes.
It's always a good time.
Mics are never fun out in the field. But we just got a new report in that we were wanting to speak about a little bit right after talking with Betsy, of course. 72% reporting.
72.
You can see those numbers, nearly 50,000 votes for yes, 84%, 49,930 votes. Pretty crazy numbers to see there.
Sammy. I'm not gonna lie, since I'm kind of new at covering elections, I wasn't quite sure how, far apart the votes would be. Obviously, this is a very huge margin, and 72% of votes are already counted, Sammy, and I'm, assuming we'll probably get those finalized here within the hour. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, so we'll get those official results. So those are like the results are in. We know that this is what the outcome is going to be, but then it takes a few days, up to a week or so. It can take a little longer even to fully certify those. But we'll really know by then what exactly is happening here. But clearly those results are showing that a majority of Jackson County and Kansas City voters, they want to see Frank White no longer in his seat as county executive. So we were just there with Betsy Webster out there at the watch party.
Yeah.
But we were wanting to check in with her again and see if she is able to talk a little bit more with us about
For sure. Yeah, we will definitely get her back on here in a couple minutes. Sammy, since the beginning of our coverage, the common theme has kind of been, what's next for Jackson County? And now that we're kind of getting more of a solid answer, not totally yet, but, almost 75% of results are in. Sammy, can you tell me a little bit more about what we could see happening in the coming days and weeks here?
Yeah, Katie. So what we've seen is if Frank White is not getting recalled, we know that nothing would happen. He would get to serve his term through January 1st, 2027. But from just what these early unofficial results are showing us, we are most likely going to see those next steps in the recall effort, which are selecting a replacement for him. So what we know by the county charter, which is the law in Jackson County that they follow, is that the chair of the legislature, Deron McGee, will appoint a temporary appointee once the recall is decided on. From there, the legislature has 30 days to pick the actual appointee for the rest of the term to serve out that term until January 1st, 2027. If they do not do that within the 30 days, the presiding judge over the 16th Judicial Circuit Court will pick that appointee. Now, something to note in all of this, whoever is picking that appointee, or in this, really the only thing that they need in this appointee is that they need to be a Democrat. Why that is because they have to be the same political party as the current county executive, which is Frank White Jr.
Wow, there certainly is so much at stake here. It's going to be really interesting how we do see it play out in the coming weeks. And, Sammy, you've been covering these recall efforts since the very beginning. Something that I thought was super interesting was just the large amount of voters that did sign for Frank White's name to be put on this ballot. The number was 43,000 signatures. And like we heard from Abby Vector earlier, this is not common among different cities. Throughout the country, usually recalls don't make it to that point. So, it's just, again, a rarity for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's not something that we've seen happen in Jackson County, but like Dr. Vector was saying, when people get together and they actually get these petitions up and going and they actually get enough signatures for the recall effort, it's more likely that these actually pass once they are on the ballot. Because unfortunately, like we said, more than 43,000 signatures, that's really difficult to collect. They collected those in about 2 years or so. So seeing that these people actually put in all of this work, they were out at so many places within Jackson County getting these signatures, it really is hard and difficult to get to this point. So now that it's on the ballot, that's why the effort just continued. And you saw them really ramp that up these past few weeks. People have been wanting you to vote yes on this, that have been in support of the recall effort. But today we did see those people come out in support for Frank White, wanting him to finish out his term. Of course, there are those people on those numbers, but it is a small margin that we're seeing so far on these unofficial results.
Sammy, one thing that I think this really is a testament to is just Midwesterners, they know how to rally together for a cause. This is something we're seeing right now as it's playing out. We're watching the election results come in. Again, 84% are voting that Executive Frank White needs to be recalled. Only 16% are voting that they want him to stay in office. You know, it's pretty crazy because, you know, I did learn that Frank White used to be highly favored. Is that true?
Yeah, he was highly favored when he first became a politician. I mean, we know that he had quite the career in baseball with the Kansas City Royals for many years, as well as coaching on some other teams. And then most recently, he coached with the Kansas City Monarchs. But now he has been a politician since 2014. That's when he joined the Jackson County Legislature, became the county executive in 2016 after the current executive resigned. And then he has had some favorable elections. He's been reelected for 2 different terms. The current term he's serving out and the one before that. And it's something that when I talked to him, he would like to finish. But he did tell me that he's not planning for running for re-election, but he did say that he could reconsider. I asked him what he meant by that, and he said that it depends on who's going to run in this next election. So we might see more of Frank White. We don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But I did reach out to his team to see if he would be offering interviews on this election night or throughout the day. They said he is not offering interviews today. They did tell us, though, that we should expect to hear from him tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly how that will go, but depending on these results and once we get things in, hopefully we will get to hear from him.
Oh, for sure, Sammy. And I know we do actually have clips from that one-on-one exclusive interview that you had with Frank White. I think we should go ahead and pull up again, you know, just his thoughts overall on this recall election whenever you spoke with him. Let's take a listen in.
In the best interest of the county. I don't think it's in the best interest of the taxpayers either. You have 5% of the people trying to overturn the majority votes. I mean, there was 118,000 people that voted for me to serve this term. But I think it's a waste of money. This recall election is going to cost us $2 million. And I don't plan to run for re-election next year anyway, so it seems like it's a waste of taxpayer dollars.
Again, that was Jackson County Executive Frank White, just on his overall thoughts of this recall election. So he did fight in the courts just yesterday. Yeah, we heard that that wasn't going to go through. I think that we should play a little bit more sound from that as well.
Because I think it's the right thing to do. I think that the way the system is set up in Jackson County, where you can collect signatures over 2 years, you can almost recall any elected official. So there's some things that need to be worked on that area. I mean, I was a county executive, so 43,000 votes. I'm sorry, signatures. So let's say if you're a district legislator who you may only got 10,000 votes. So it'd be easy to recall anybody if you don't agree with one thing that goes on. But I think that there's a lot of things to be done here. I'm a guy that likes to complete what I signed up to do, and the voters gave me 4 years to do what I need to do to make the county better, move the county forward, and I think I've done that. And I think that it'd be nice to be able to finish my.
All right, Sammy, just about an hour until your KCTV5 news at 10. We're still sitting at 72% of the election results, and I'm going to go ahead and pull that up once again for any new viewers who might be entering this stream. Again, almost 50,000 people have voted to take Executive Frank White out of office. Almost 10,000, on the other hand, have voted to keep him in office. Sammy, do you have any final thoughts?
I mean, I thought this could have went both ways tonight, so it was really just kind of waiting to see what the voters wanted. We saw a major effort from these people who were in support of the recall effort. We knew that they obviously wanted this to happen. Their biggest frustration was the 2023 property tax assessments. Those are still giving them headaches today. This is what people wanted to see happen. It looks like we just got some updated numbers.
Oh my gosh.
93% reporting, 67,534 people, 86% voting yes, that they shall recall Frank White Jr. from his role as county executive in Jackson County, Missouri. No, 10,701, just 13% of both Kansas City and Jackson County voters in there right now. So we're going to keep watching these numbers. Obviously, 93%, that's not everyone, but that is pretty much telling of what we're going to see happen here, which means
Yep.
there's going to be a lot of next steps to happen here. We're going to have to wait and see what Frank White Jr. has to say about this, what the legislature has to say about this. We're going to know what those people are thinking over at Betsy's watch party. They're going to be excited about this. This is something they've been working towards for a very long time.
You know, Sammy, I feel like this is something that might go down in Kansas City's history books.
yeah.
Never before has an executive in Jackson County been recalled. I mean, it's just mind-blowing, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, we've never had a recall election, and we've never been successful to actually get one on the ballot and see something like this happen. But we know there's been efforts for many years, so it's wild to see it actually come through. This was the only question on the ballot today, so definitely crazy to see these results come in.
Wow,
While
yeah.
it was a low turnout for voters, you can see people definitely had their opinions.
Yeah, and you know, this has been another common theme throughout the evening. Dr. Vector spoke on this, but just the importance of using your rights as an American citizen, getting out there to the polls and voting. We saw only 10% of Jackson County residents went out, but obviously their vote, of course, really counted today. And just to think there were almost 90% of Jackson County residents that did not use their rights as an American citizen to vote. And, you know, I just think all elections are important, local, state, and federal, you know, ones at the national level, but, you know, it's just something, you know, another food for thought.
Yeah, and once we start to see those official results or the rest of the results come in, the next steps, when I asked Frank White about what will you do if you're recalled, he said, well, it shouldn't be about me, it should be about who's next and what's next. And we already know some people have put their name in the hat for running for Jackson County Executive next November, which is the election for the full term. So again, whoever takes this next position after Frank White, if he is actually leaving office, if these confirm that to be true, that person will serve the rest of his term. They could run, but we also know many people would like to run as well.
And I know this is something that you did speak with Dr. Vector earlier about, just potential legal discourse. I do want to go ahead and ask you about that. Again, I do think it's really interesting. Do we potentially see that happening going forward?
Yeah, she said that there are possibilities. She says there are certain possibilities. She said according to Missouri law, there's only about 30 days or so that his team can actually get this together after the certification of this election. So that's something we, from the investigative side, are going to be watching very closely, because that's extremely important to the people that have done this work, but also just for citizens as a whole. This has already been a mess. We know it's been a mess. We've been following all of the back and forth with it. So now what's next? This is not the last that we're going to be hearing about the Jackson County recall. This is truly just the start of what's next after this election.
And I do think that a lot of Jackson County residents, you know, going forward with whatever does happen in this election, they want someone that's going to show out to legislative sessions and, you know, just be consistent in the community. I know that's something you did speak with Frank White about in your one-on-one as well.
Yeah, he does not feel that he needs to be at those Jackson County legislature meetings. We double-checked him on that. He's only been to one this year in 2025.
Okay.
And we talked with the county clerk about that as well and got those numbers from her, but checked it ourselves as well. And he said that he didn't feel that was accurate, but said it doesn't matter. He doesn't think that he has to attend those meetings because they are not county executive meetings. They are county legislature meetings. But ahead of this recall, we have seen the recall Frank White T-shirts sitting in the audience,
signs.
looking for him. We've seen the signs outside of the courthouse, and we know that people have wanted to talk to him. This was actually from a South Kansas City Democrats meeting that I attended because he was speaking at it. But the recall protesters, they also showed up wanting to talk to Frank White, but also show him how frustrated they are. And they did do that as he walked into the meeting and walked out of the meeting. And then we also covered just kind of what he spoke about at this meeting. But that's something we just saw a lot throughout this recall process, is Frank White did kind of, you know, make his voice heard on why he thinks he should stay in office. And there were bits and pieces that we have seen from him about the things that he's gone through, and then also just why he believes he's being recalled, which he has pointed many times to the failed stadium tax vote last year.
Sammy, we're now at 95%. We have
we are.
2 more percent since last time, pulling up those results once again. 61,000 people have voted to recall Jackson County Executive Frank White, and 10,000 have voted to keep him in office. Still waiting on those final 5% of the votes until this can officially be called. But Sammy, since the beginning it's been pretty consistent that the yes column was getting a lot more votes than the no's.
Yeah, that's a
sure.
big difference.
It is. It really, really is. And I know you've said it before, but you are pretty surprised by this margin?
I'm not surprised by I am surprised by how big of a difference, because I didn't know how many people, of course, would come out for this election, but I do know they've been very active on social media of getting people to vote yes in this recall election. But I am not surprised by this outcome. We have seen it time and time again, the frustration from people. We know that there has been people from the legislature. There are elected officials who have spoken out against their coworker, Frank White Jr. So seeing this happen, I think just goes back to what Dr. Vector said, is when a recall petition actually gets on the ballot, they're usually pretty successful.
Wow. And, just looking at some of this footage that you've been covering events like these for months, again, recall Frank White protests. They have T-shirts, they have signs. I mean, Jackson County residents really did go all out for this recall election. Like you said, they have been fighting for it for some of them for years now. I know we heard from Betsy Webster with one Jackson County resident earlier. She had been working towards this since the very beginning. And Sammy, 100% of votes are in.
Breaking
Take
news.
a look at that. 85% say they do want Jackson County Executive Frank White out of office, and 100% of votes, it's a done deal.
I'm looking at our official web story on our website right now.
All right,
it's official. Frank White Jr. is recalled by the voters of Jackson County. Obviously these are unofficial results, but it's pretty clear. 64,000 people voting yes. Now what's next? There's a long process ahead.
Sammy, thanks so much for joining us on the live desk this evening. We're just a little bit over 50 minutes out until KCTV5 News at 10, where election coverage will continue. I know, again, our reporter Betsy Webster is actually out at a watch party. We've joined her a couple times. A lot of Jackson County residents are going to be absolutely thrilled about this turnout. And then I just want to verify, you said that Executive Frank White, he won't be commenting regardless of the outcome. Is that correct?
Tonight he is not sharing his thoughts. I was told by his team that we most likely will hear from him tomorrow. We're expected to. There wasn't any promise in that, but we are going to push for either a statement or a interview phone call tonight. I'll be asking for that again. But as for our coverage at 10 o'clock, you can get coverage from Betsy Webster on the actual watch party of people who have been challenging this for so long, wanting this recall to actually happen. We're going to be hearing from them about how this feels to know that this has finally happened for them, as they've been trying so long for this to actually get on the ballot. And then I'll be covering what's next. We'll be talking about the county charter, how this will work, what we're expecting to see. We'll have any statements from any of the legislators. We're going to be expecting those to pour in very soon, because we're less than an hour from the 10 o'clock news, and I'm sure they're typing those up probably right now.
100%. And we know we do have a lot of new viewers on in the past few minutes since these results have been finalized. I want to go ahead and pull that up onto your screen once again. Like Sammy just said earlier, Jackson County Executive Frank White has been recalled from his position. You guys take a look at those numbers. If you're just now joining us, 64,469 people voted to kick Frank White out of his position. Only 11,191 people voted for him to stay. Pretty shocking numbers right there. And I think it's just a telltale sign once again of how badly most Jackson County residents did want to get Executive Frank White out of office. Sammy.
A 9-year career in politics.
9-year career. Yeah. Wow. Sammy, thanks again so much for sitting down on the live desk. It's been great working with you. And to all of our viewers, we're just about 50 minutes out from KCTV5 News at 10. Thanks so much for tuning in.